Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Cinema Critic Corner podcast, where we talk about and discuss a range of films and sort of just critique them, analyze them, whatever I feel like doing, really. And today we're going to talk about the weird, strange, unusual world and mind of David Cronenberg and sort of the message behind his philosophy and how and why he kind of became the first prominent figure of the body horror genre. In the last episode, I discussed Videodrome in a lot more depth and detail, and I will be mentioning it in this video. But if you want to hear my thoughts and sort of media analysis of it, go check out the last episode. I really had a lot of feelings about Videodrome. I just absolutely loved it. And after I watched it, I kind of wanted to delve into the mind of David Cronenberg more and what he has to offer us as audience and to the world of film and yeah, the horror genre in general. I really think Cronenberg is such a remarkable writer and director, and his films and ideas, they really do freak me out, and I find them very uncanny and weird and just there's something so like I just feel so gravitated towards his films and his ideas. And yeah, in quite a profound way, to be honest. And they really make me reflect on my own desires and fears as well, and this sort of morbid curiosity that I have that's been more explored through his filmography. Cronenberg is known for polarizing critics and audiences alike. He has both received a lot of critical acclaim and controversy for his depiction of gore, of violence, and explicit sexual content. When Cronenberg was younger, he was very much an avid reader and he really liked sci-fi magazines and horror comics. He eventually moved his way into film after completing an organic chemistry and literature course. And I found this out that I found it quite funny that he said the films Dumbo and Bambi are some of the most terrifying horror films that he's ever seen and actually massively influenced his approach to horror. And he said that Bambi was the first important film he ever saw, especially when Bambi's mum died, as a particularly powerful moment for him. But since then, he has grown from a lot of different genres of films, and he has actually made a lot of different genres, not just body horror, but that's kind of how he started out. But some films that were influences on him that I've never heard of, but I think they're classics, I think. So the gothic horror film Vampire from 1932, the American sci-fi thriller The War of the Worlds 1953, the British crime drama Performance 1970, and the American road action thriller Duel, which was Steven Spielberg's debut feature film in 1971. So yeah, those were just a handful, like a lot of different genres he felt influenced by. Also a conventional horror film, Don't Look Now, it was 1970 something. Didn't write that down. But yeah, as I said, he kind of made his way from conventional horror to more of the body horror, to psychological thrillers and dramas, and each era sort of building from the first as he became more successful, with A History of Violence in 2005 as his highest budgeted and most accessible to audiences. It's one of the most critically acclaimed films, as well as Eastern Promises in 2007, and those were his sort of more later films that he made. Um, but one of his most latest film, I think, might be Crimes of the Future, but Maps of the Stars was his first Hollywood-made film, and ironically, the story revolved around critiquing Hollywood. And he sort of always started. He wanted to be independent from when he first started. Before that point, he had mostly filmed in his hometown in Toronto in Canada. He wanted to be independent away from Hollywood. And a lot of people really admired his independence and not settling for normal stories. He wanted to be bold and be out there and be different and preach what he wanted to preach and he welcomed criticism and judgment, but yeah, he gained a lot of recognition and admiration for sticking with what he wants to do without compromising. But this didn't mean it came without any consequences, because for his first film, Shivers, in one of his first films, Shivers, in 1975, he actually got into some legal trouble with a moral clause, and there was discrepancy of using sort of the Arts Council funding, um, as people thought the film was just sadistic porn. And Videodrome in 1983 was actually partly a response to the audience, to the criticism of that statement. And again, you can hear more about my thoughts on Videodrome specifically um, with my last episode. But it was a really great film that depicted a lot of different things, but especially about media consumption and um, our view on how we depict ideas and messages through film, through media. And it was kind of, yeah, an exploration into the philosophy of that, and being critical about what we're consuming, and also the film industry in general, I guess. But yeah, a lot of different ideas there. I think the main message was that media can and will devour you, and you will become the media. Your desires, they can consume you without proper regulation and awareness. But just a little bit more, like a little bit more of a personal touch with Cronenberg. So I actually watched my first Cronenberg film, The Fly, when I was very young. I believe maybe around 15, potentially younger, but my dad actually showed it to me. And yeah, thanks Dad for my now weird sort of morbid curiosity and my love for horror, because I became very desensitized when I was young. And I've seen so many since that it's like, yeah, I think it's still a great film. Even now, because I rewatched it like maybe a couple of years ago, and it wasn't quite as terrifying, but it still holds up today. And I think what I really love about it is Cronenberg really peels back the layers of what it means to be human, and not just physically, but like what it means to be human, in our mind, in our soul. And he really opens up the vulnerability of that. And as well, he really gives us a lot of compassion for the main character. I got his name, but in a lot of his films, he really wants us to be empathetic with his characters and really, relate with them, feel like we're a part of the story with them. So then recently, I was hearing about Crash, and I really, really wanted to watch it because it seemed really interesting and something new that I hadn't, seen before. And so I had my expectations very high for it. But yeah, I was just left quite disappointed with it, to be honest. For me personally, it didn't click. And as I just said about the protagonist and his main characters, I didn't feel any connection with the guy in Crash. I don't remember his name. I felt like he was very neutral and very boring, dare I say. And just, I didn't have anything to connect with him on. I felt it was very slow paced and very just, I didn't know where it's going. I was confused, I was lost, and I just kept zoning out and I was very disengaged. So yeah, I didn't enjoy it personally, but I understood kind of that why people like it. I think it was very daring, and it clearly kind of shows this hypersexualization, but in a way that's not attractive. He doesn't glorify it, and he doesn't put a morality on it. He kind of shows us the disturbed individuals and their philosophy and their psychology. And he does it in such an entrancing kind of way that's very intriguing to me. And funnily enough, he actually was awarded the jury prize for audacity. So I thought that was quite interesting. And yeah, love him for that. Then I watched Dead Ringers, and Jeremy Irons was the main character. He plays these two identical twins who are gynecologists. and they have a very weird relationship. They live together, they pretend to like be each other, they sleep with the same kind of women pretending to be each other. But it sort of descends into this madness of identity, this loss of individuality. And it's very, very interesting in how more of a psychological approach than his general body horror and physical sort of distortions and transformations. I thought this was very, very interesting, and it kind of showed that he can be a very serious director as well, that takes on these complex ideas and theories and does it in a very compelling way. And I thought Jeremy Irons was just absolutely brilliant. I love him. I think he's a great actor, and he really, really played the two identical twins so well. Like you could really feel they were a sense of their own people, but they were kind of like conjoined twins at the same time. It was very, very interesting. Um, and it really created a minefield of emotion and, portrayed that our closest relationships can ultimately be our most destructive ones. He also showed that, two bodies with one mind and this fracturing decay could even be more destructive than a diseased body, like I was just mentioning. In a 1982 interview, um, the interviewer says, "Your film's probably best known symbolized by the exploding head at the beginning of Scanners. How do you feel about that?" And Cronenberg answers, "The idea of an energy and a mind that can't be physically contained is very appropriate, I think, to the way I feel sometimes." I just thought that was like a funny insight and like an interesting insight into the mind of David Cronenberg. Um, he's just so interesting and weird, and I love it. So yeah, I think, Cronenberg's work shows us that the physical body is temporary and unstable, and the interconnection between the body and mind is so important and necessary, and you can't have one without the other. They're so integrated into each other, and I love how he does explore each in its own way, and but especially through personal transformation. Um, and by producing these monstrosities of horror and disgust from the audience, he kind of explores the body as a site of philosophical and existential crisis within one another, and often with that atmosphere of dysregulation and unease. He Cronenberg posits the questions: if the body changes, does the identity change with it? Does the self survive the physical transformation? Is the self a reflection of whatever the body is currently inhabiting? It's kind of this sense of perverse mysticism, and it's almost like transcendence that's not quite right. It's not pure and it's not holy. It's kind of an inverse of that. And I just, again, find it so interesting how he explores this in such a way that's just, it's so impressive to me how he accomplishes both desire and fear in one. And much like the subjects of his stories, he uses these ideas together, these polar opposites, these contrasts, and illuminates these taboos that's often not expressed in film or in our daily conversation. And he's both captured extreme controversy and profound praise all in one go. His characters portray their realities as states of change and fusion rather than a fixed ideology and state. And he zooms in on these transformations as processes rather than focusing on the outcomes of these transformations. He plays with the fascination of liberation and freedom from losing control of our own bodily boundaries. Our deepest fears and desires fused together. Yeah, much like I said, like his subjects in the stories. And that was actually a very concise episode. So I will actually leave it there. And I really hope you enjoyed listening and or watching. Let me know what you think about David Cronenberg, what films you've seen, what you like about him. There's still a lot that I haven't watched. I didn't mention much about the ones that I haven't watched, but maybe I'll do a part two in the future. It's just so many films that are on my watch list from varying directors. So I try to watch at least 5 of a director that I'm talking about. Um, oh yeah, wait, I just wanted to mention, I didn't mention this, but I did watch The Brood as well, which I did mention. But that was, I really didn't like that. And I know that was a very early work of his. But for me, it felt very juvenile and very dated. There's some 70s films that I love. I was going to say The Exorcist. I'm pretty sure that was 70s. I think that still holds up today. I don't find it dated at all. The Wicker Man, amazing. But The Brood felt very underdeveloped as a story. And yeah, the effects were just very bad. And I don't, I'm trying to see it from the point of view of the 70s. But as I said, it was probably not a lot of budget, I'm guessing too. Um, but definitely it was the start of his ideas coming together, and that one was definitely a more horror um based film from him, and I found it kind of interesting and refreshing. He still kind of had those psychological elements in it, and what I did find interesting as well was that story was based on his own personal experience of a divorce with his first wife, and it was kind of an exploration of that, and that the main woman was like a image of his first wife. And so maybe if I rewatch it through that lens, it might be a bit different and a bit more interesting. But yeah, thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.